I am trapped in my marriage? My husband doesn't know about my little hobby. I write stories and post them on erotic websites. Many of the stories are from my experiences in college and before and during my first marriage. I was pretty wild in college, but while many guys made it to home plate, usually on the second or third date, although some did grand slam on the first date, more often than not, I stayed at third base. But college was a time of experimentation and craziness. When I said I do and married Greg, my first husband, I thought it was all behind me. I had found the love of my life, and he would be my last and best lover. An added bonus for me, a girl who grew up in trailer parks, was his rich family. But I knew plenty of rich kids I could pick up. But with Greg, it was mostly love. Unfortunately, he didn't feel the same way. I was just a trophy to him, something to check off the list of things people expected of him, someone who helped him check off other expectations like kids, a house, cooking, cleaning, and general errand running. Romance went out the window as soon as we left the reception and started our honeymoon, and I should have seen it coming. His parents insisted on a prenup. My attorney, upon reviewing it, expressed surprise that there was no mention of adultery or other reasons for divorce. It simply stated that if I initiated divorce proceedings, I would lose all rights to the marital property except for the $50,000. However, if Greg filed for divorce, he would be subject to the same penalties. I was in love, Greg was in love, and the prenup was ridiculous. I envisioned his parents trying to protect the $2,000 home they gave the newlyweds. I signed the contract with a light heart. I just thought his parents didn't like me, the gold digger from the trailer. We went on a Caribbean cruise on our honeymoon, and before we even got to the first port in the Bahamas, Greg was only looking at bikini girls by the pool and grabbing the asses of waitresses in the dining room. I denied it, thinking I hadn't actually seen it happen. But it became undeniable when the steward stopped at our table to inform my husband that he would be taken off the ship at the next port if he didn't stop molesting the waitresses. Greg laughed it off, saying he had accidentally slapped a waitress on the ass, but it wouldn't happen again. The steward looked at Greg incredulously for a few minutes, but then said, "Rest assured it won't happen again." He left it at that, turned, and walked away. We had a wonderful time in the Bahamas, everything I had hoped for on my honeymoon. The problem started in Jamaica. When we arrived, while I was getting ready, my fiancé slipped away and left the ship alone. I didn't know where he went, and I was afraid I would miss him if I left the ship. So I ended up missing Jamaica altogether, except for what I could see from the deck of the ship. My husband barely made it to the ship, drunk as a sailor. He passed out on the bed, and I sobbed in my sleep. The next day he apologized and was as attentive as one can be in Grand Cayman. He left when we were in Cozumel, leaving me alone at Senor Frog's. Quite by chance, as he excused himself to the restroom, I looked out the window and saw him leaving with a pretty senorita I had noticed him eyeing at the bar. I jumped up to run after him, but was stopped by the waitress who presented our bill. When I paid the bill, Greg was gone. I walked back to the ship wondering what was happening to me. I had only been married for 5 days. 5 days, and my husband had already left me twice. It was already 4 o'clock when he returned to our cabin, and he seemed genuinely upset to see me with red eyes and tears, surrounded by the soiled tissues I'd used to wipe my nose. "I just left to buy you a bracelet. When I came back, you were gone," he complained. "I wasn't buying it. I saw you with that cheating girl. I saw you leaving Froggies with her." I was so upset I pouted. It's a mistake to cry. My nostrils were stuffy. I'm not the most attractive when there are balls of snot flying out of my nose. As I hurriedly cleaned up, Greg knelt down in front of me, having looked down beforehand to make sure he wasn't about to kneel in any of the damage. "No, honey, I was admiring her bracelet and she just showed me where she bought it." He held out the blue Puebla bracelet to me. "I was devastated when I got back and you were gone. I looked everywhere for you. I finally gave up and went back to the ship. Here, put the bracelet on and let's go to dinner." The bracelet was beautiful. I put it on, wiped my nose again, and kissed my unfaithful husband. I noticed that he apparently hadn't stopped drinking while he was looking for me. 2 weeks after our return, the denial I had been indulging in was completely shattered. Greg went back to work and I was sorting out bills to pay. Greg had paid the last bill from the cruise ship with a credit card, but somehow the statement ended up in the unpaid bills stack. I was surprised at the amount of the bill, considering most things were included in the cruise price. A quick review of the bill revealed the reason: the purchase of several Blue Puebla bracelets from the ship's gift store. What an asshole, I thought, and then realized how gullible I'd been. So the pretty señorita had just shown him the store where she bought her bracelet? In our ship's gift store? Asshole! That's probably where one of the bracelets went. I checked the purchase date on the bill. Someone in Jamaica got one of these too. I was frantic as I got up to go to the bathroom. I soon wished I hadn't. What a stinging and burning sensation. I didn't know what had happened. I wondered if I had picked up something in Mexico. I went straight to old Dr. Wright. He had been our family's doctor for many years. He took blood and urine tests. I asked if I really needed it because, well, it stung. I had to, and it really did sting. He sent me home, promising he would call me as soon as the results came back. He told me he was pretty sure what it was and gave me a prescription for antibiotics that I could use immediately. When he called, he confirmed that his assumption was correct. "Betty Sue, what have you been doing?" he asked. "Well, I told you I just got back from Mexico and the Caribbean. It was my honeymoon." I didn't mention it during the office visit. He was silent for a moment. "Congratulations, Betty, on your marriage." He paused again. "But I have to tell you that you have gonorrhea." I was shocked and immediately began to argue that that was impossible, that I had only been with Greg for the last year and had just gotten married. "Ah, well, you may not have been acting, but your husband might have." I put the phone down and picked it up again to hear Doc say, "You're actually lucky. Many women don't experience that burning symptom, and gonorrhea can seriously damage the reproductive organs. The antibiotics you're taking should handle the infection, but I'd like you to come in for a follow-up exam in 2 weeks to be sure." I thanked him and hung up the phone, still in shock. Even during my wildest college escapades, I had never contracted an STD. Of course, I was careful enough. I think I single-handedly drove up the stock price of several contraceptive companies. Unfortunately, even though I used them with Greg, after we got engaged, I enjoyed the freedom I expected from monogamy. Stupid, stupid, stupid. And I married the asshole. Stupid, stupid, stupid. I'd been steaming about it all day and exploded when he walked in the door. Of all the reactions I'd imagined, none of them were like this when I blasted my accusations at him. When I was done, he laughed. He laughed. I was shocked and didn't fight back as he hugged me and then went to grab a beer from the fridge, explaining as he went, "Hey, babe, we were on vacation. We were supposed to go out and have fun." I huffed and puffed and threatened to trash the house. I would take him to court and divorce his ass. He just laughed and said, "Great, that would really piss my parents off. They were afraid I would walk away with the house they gave you." That threw me off balance. Were his parents trying to protect me? I walked away. I got in my car and drove away, aimlessly I thought, but soon found myself in the driveway to Greg's family's house. Or should I say, the estate. I stopped at the tennis courts, where I saw my relatives engrossed in a furious game. They stopped as I entered the courts. One look at my face and they understood. I think I was shaking with shock. I couldn't speak coherently. Greg's father threw his jacket over my shoulders, and he and his wife, embracing each other, escorted me to the pool house, the nearest building. Seating me at the dining room table, they warmed up the Keurig coffee maker and cupped their hands around a hot cup of strong brew. Then they sat down across from me and waited with a concerned expression on their faces. As my trepidation subsided and I began sipping my coffee, Marion reached across the table and took my hand. "What's wrong, sweetie?" I looked at them and yanked my hand away. The rage boiling inside me threatened to burst out as I accused them. "You knew, didn't know, you let me marry that asshole." Marion returned my hand and said soothingly, "We did try to warn you, honey. Barry even offered you money, but you were in love." The care that came through in her words made me freeze. "I just thought you didn't like me." Barry laughed. "God, no. We thought you were too good for Greg. Too good. But we thought that if anyone could fix him, it would be you," Marion added. "At least that's what we hoped." "Why did you make me sign that damn prenup? Greg cheats on me every month, infects me with gonorrhea, and gets me a $2,000 house as a reward? Are you guys sick?" I almost spat. My in-laws exchanged glances, after which Barry nodded to his wife, who began to speak. "We thought about doing it differently." She patted my arm. "Look, honey, we gave you the house because we thought you deserved something for the pain we expected Greg to bring you, but we hoped it would work out. And we didn't want you to accidentally have an incentive to back out of the wedding. We want it to work out. We want Greg to be the man he should be." Barry interrupted. "Yeah, I just wish he would become some kind of man, not a dumb reptile like he is now." His wife shook her head sorrowfully. "Yeah, maybe in wanting him to become something we could be proud of, we went too far." She leaned back in her chair, releasing my hand. "We didn't want to make him a trap for you, as I realize now. Or worse, we accomplished the exact opposite of what we wanted." Barry spoke up. "Be honest. We knew it was a trap. We thought we could avoid the embarrassment of Greg's divorce if it meant losing the house. We knew it was a honey trap." I stared at them. They said they liked me, but their plan was to avoid embarrassment for them. I was trapped in this marriage if I didn't want Greg to get the $2,000 that was supposed to belong to me. I got up and left. I would punish them both in my own way. But first, I had to deal with this STD. The doctor said it would take a week to cure. I'd wait 2 weeks, and then I'd get my revenge. "Do you have any friends? I'm in the mood for something wild." I licked my lips seductively. "And I mean wild." I ran my tongue along his cheek. It had been 2 weeks since I'd left Egypt, the land of denial, and I was clean. I found this young stud at the meat market of the local dance club. I chose this place for 2 reasons. 1, I knew every guy here was a horn dog looking for good luck, and 2, it was a place I learned Greg frequented. In fact, my husband was known as the Big Stallion among the denizens of this dump. The stallion looked around and said, "Yes, I have a few friends who might be interested. How many do you need?" What did the walrus say to the oysterman? We can't get by with more than 4 to give everyone a hand. 4 more would be nice. I smiled. Have them meet us here. I gave him some of my business cards with the address on them. I stroked his body one more time and left him with a smile. Don't keep me waiting, stud. Oh, and tell them I have a fully stocked bar. It had been a long night. Greg was out, and I'd forgotten how quickly young men recover. Every guy had sex with me at least twice, and some even after that. It was after 2 in the morning when I realized that they had contacted a couple more guys and invited them to my party. At least I think it was a couple more, but I wasn't paying much attention to what these guys looked like, so I couldn't swear that any of the 7 that had been there in the morning had been there when we started. I looked around. Even the original stud didn't seem to have made it through the evening. It had been fun. I'd forgotten how much fun sex could be, and the revenge aspect added a certain je ne sais quoi spark to the whole thing. I loved it. I especially liked the facial expressions I saw as I did the dance, while leading them into the bedroom and shedding my clothes as I went. The expressions became even more pronounced when I pointed to the large picture of Greg I had placed on the bedside table and explained that my husband couldn't satisfy me, so I really needed a good man. I heard the couple whisper, "Greg!" I knew that my husband's reputation had just gone from big stallion to big cuckold, and when Greg came home at 9:30 a.m. and discovered I was still making love to guys, it turned out that Greg was the only one who was supposed to be enjoying our marriage. He exploded when, upon entering our bedroom, he found me recreating the Tour de Fel with the two remaining horny dogs. He took offense when I suggested he come closer and watch real men have sex. When he pounced on me, my other 3 lovers held him back and, following my suggestion, held him while I finished with the 2 remaining lovers. The realization that Greg was watching what was happening increased my arousal. Greg threatened to kill me, so one stud slammed his fist into Greg's stomach, promising to punish him if he so much as laid a finger on me. To increase the effect, the other 2 punched him in the head with their fists and then threw him out into the hallway. I happily spent the rest of that Saturday with the men. I only had to go to the club for one more night. After that, studs started coming straight to our house. I invited some of the girls, too. Free booze and sex is a very good incentive. It took 2 weeks of raucous parties and constant sex to completely ruin Greg's reputation as a stud and subject him to constant humiliation at every club he showed up at before he broke down. I had only been married for 2 full months before Greg handed me the papers. I estimated that it cost $1 million a month, not counting the booze and food that my parties took up, all on Greg's dime. His parents had come to see me several times in those 2 weeks, begging me not to embarrass them with my blatant cheating. At least Greg was restrained, they claimed. The last time they came, I decided I'd had enough. I smiled, wrapped my arms around their bodies, and invited them to join in the lovemaking. I've already told the neighbors that the 3 of us were lovers. They ran off. That same day, Greg moved out, at his parents' insistence, and filed for divorce. I understand it only cost them $2,000 to get him to agree to it. The end! Subscribe to my channel. Thank you.